It was 3 a.m. at night when I was returning home from my second job. I walked slowly with a bag full of cleaning supplies on the empty street. There was a soft breeze and the air still smelled like rain, even though the heavy rain had turned into a drizzle. When I reached outside our building, I woke up the night guard to open the gate and walked in. I climbed up the stairs to reach the fourth floor, where we lived in a small one-bedroom apartment. I shut my eyes and sighed as I smelled the alcohol in our living room. My husband Louis was asleep on the couch. I kept my belongings on the floor and went to check on my son, Aiden. Aiden was asleep on the small cot in the bedroom. I slipped onto the bed next to him without changing my clothes or having some food. I was too exhausted to do anything. I had married Louis when I was 18. I believed that I was madly in love with him, and I had gone against the wishes of my family to marry him. I had always dreamed that he would be the perfect husband and would always take care of me. I shunned my academic dreams and enrolled into a public university after marrying him. At first, both Louis and I worked, but he got into a scuffle at work one day and was fired. Since that day, he began going from one job to the next, and I was left to handle our finances on my own. Within the same year, I got pregnant and gave up on studying. I could hardly manage a job with the pregnancy, let alone my education. I had thought that my pregnancy would at least make Louis realize his responsibility, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Somehow, my pregnancy made Louis extremely lazy, and while I took care of our son, he spent his time sleeping on the couch or outside with his friends. With Aiden growing up, the expenses of the house had increased multifold, and I had taken up 2 jobs to maintain them. Aiden was already 5, and I needed to save up if I ever wanted to send him to school. Louis did some odd jobs from time to time to help out a bit, but his addiction had taken over his entire life, and he was too drunk for most of the day to help out in any way. One of our neighbors and my kind friend Irene helped me out by looking after Aiden while I was at work during the day. I had to depend on Louis at night. I had made him promise that he wouldn't touch alcohol until Aiden was asleep.
Kira!
I dragged myself up and checked the time. It was 7 a.m. It was too early for Louis to be awake. I walked to the living room quickly to see if everything was all right. What is it?
I need to borrow some money.
For what? He raised his eyebrows.
So you're going to interrogate me now?
No, I just don't want you to spend too much on alcohol. He nodded his head.
Everything I do is always going to be a problem. So what if I spend some on myself?
Aiden is 5, Louis. I just worry we won't have enough to get him to school.
Aiden. Everything is always about that little brat. I went to school a bit late. Look at me. I'm fine, aren't I?
It's not wrong for us to want a better life for him if we didn't have one.
I didn't have a good life. You did. That's what makes you worry. You can't give your son all the rich life your dad gave you. Shouldn't have married me then. Should have married a rich guy. But he wouldn't let you torment him, would he?
I heard Aiden's cry from the bedroom. He probably woke up because of our argument. Louis, stop shouting. Is it your hangover?
Yes, everything is because of my alcohol. Nothing's ever your fault. Give me the money and go look after your son. Get him to shut up.
Our son? And no, I'm not paying for your leisure when we don't even have the basic necessities. I walked away towards the bedroom to soothe Aiden while I heard Louis bang the front door loudly in anger as he left. After spending some time with Aiden, I left him at Irene's place and went off to work. It was another ordinary day at work until I got home at 3 a.m. to find our apartment deserted. Louis and Aiden were both gone, and so was some of Louis's stuff. I called Louis many times and kept pacing around the house in stress until it was 8 a.m. I was about to leave the house to go to a police station and file a missing report until Louis finally called me back. Louis, where have you been? I have been calling you all night. Is Aiden okay? Is he with you?
Whoa, too many questions, Kira. Aiden is with me, but you won't be seeing him anytime soon.
What? Why won't I see him? Is he okay?
Well, you will if you pay up.
Pay up? What do you mean?
Well, pay up. Give me money. Take your son.
Have you lost your mind, Louis?
Uh-huh. Let's be careful with our words. I have your son, remember?
Our son? Are you implying that you have kidnapped your own son and want your wife to pay ransom?
Whatever helps you pay me faster, Kira. Tick-tock.
Where are you?
I'll come take the money from you myself. I want $500.
Okay, where and when are you coming?
You have it right now?
I've been saving up for Aiden.
Of course, after all you work so hard even after midnight.
Where and when, Louis? I want my son.
I'll be there in an hour. It will cost me an extra 200 to travel though, so 700 it is.
Okay, I'm waiting. I was too afraid to call the police just in case Louis would find out, so I called up Irene and told her everything on the phone. Irene came over with her husband Oliver. They promised to help me out in whatever way they could. Irene went downstairs to keep an eye out for Louis. Soon enough, Irene gave me a missed call, signaling that Louis was entering the building. I asked Oliver to hide in the washroom. I heard footsteps on the stairs and I knew it was Louis. I opened the door and he entered and locked it behind him immediately. He also seemed nervous and kept looking around.
No one here, right?
I could hear my heartbeat in my ears as I nodded. He asked me for the money and I handed him the paper bag, but as soon as he turned to leave, Oliver caught him from behind, causing them both to fall down in a scuffle. Louis took out a small pocket knife and began stabbing Oliver's arm. I could see the blood spread throughout his t-shirt, but he didn't give up. I heard the police siren coming from the living room window, and I went over to the window to shout for help. The policemen came downstairs, separated both of them, and held them away from each other. Irene rushed upstairs with Aiden in her arms. I took Aiden from her and held him for a while, sobbing into his small body. Irene told me that she had found Aiden at the back of the truck that Louis came with. He was already crying, so it hadn't been difficult for her to follow the sound. She had also informed Oliver, and he had decided that since she had Aiden, it was useless for me to give Louis any money. Since he was a manual construction worker, he was confident that he would be able to handle him. She had also called up the police in the meantime. The police arrested Louis and let Oliver go. They also asked us all to come to the station with them for a statement. With our statements, Aiden's condition and the truck parked outside our building, the police had enough evidence to convict Louis. Louis was charged with multiple offenses, and it was unlikely that he would see the sun anytime soon. I was glad that I or my son didn't have to see him in our vicinity at all. They also revoked his parental rights over Aiden, and I filed for a divorce that got accepted easily, given our circumstances. I moved with Aiden to an NGO that helped single mothers. I needed extra help since I no longer had Louis to help me out at nights, and I couldn't keep two jobs and take care of Aiden as well. My family had heard about everything that had happened and attempted to help me out. I decided to try to restore my relationship with them, but denied their financial help. I needed to be independent, not just for myself, but also for Aiden. It took me an entire year to stabilize myself enough to move out of the NGO. I decided to move from New York to New Jersey with Aiden. I had been homeschooling him, and I was sure that he would pass his exams and study at an actual school very soon. I'd also enrolled in an online program for myself, so I could work more professionally in the future. I applied as a helper to a small school for disabled children in New Jersey, where I would be working with the children and helping them out in their daily chores. I wanted to get away from my old life and start a new life for me and my son. I bid goodbye to my old friends and left to begin a new journey, one without the baggage from the past.